Hello, this is James Spence from Roller Tomasi, and you are listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we are back with a brand new episode. And folks, I am not here alone. I have returning guest and first-time co-host, none other than Stacy Hilt of the Casket Lottery. Stacy, say hello.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, it's wonderful to have you here, Stacy. And folks, it's wonderful to have you back for the show. We've got a real exciting one for you. We have Zach Jordan, guitarist of Bane and frontman of Silent Drive. That conversation is coming up momentarily. We cover it all. We cover the history of Bane. We cover the unexpected reunion show. We cover Silent Drive and their brand new record on Equal Vision Records, Fairhaven. We cover it all. And that's coming up momentarily, folks. But yeah, I'm excited. How about you, Stacy?
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I met Zach years ago, just randomly on a Casket tour of the West Coast, and we kind of hooked up over the years from that point on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you know him. You know him from touring.
Yeah. We ran into him randomly in Southern California, and I can't remember if we hopped on their show or their shows fell through, but we ended up playing some random shows in Southern California, and then they played a show in Lawrence, Kansas, and they ended up staying with Nathan's mom at his mom's house, and she made him pancakes the next day before they left. Like, we had all these stories about them just crashing in her floor and then eating pancakes at their house before they took off for the next show.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, Bane and Casket Lottery on the same show. That sounds kind of like a dream come true.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, man. They were always like one of my favorite, like, kind of traditional punk hardcore bands.
Yeah.
So I was stoked to get on with them.
Yeah, you know, I came into hardcore when the crazy metalcore stuff was reigning supreme, as you're familiar with. Coalesce, Converge, Dillinger Escape Plan, Botch. So that's my starting point. I didn't get into a lot of the older stuff, but Bane has that older sound. And I guess because I discovered them as I was getting into things, I love them. I still love them. I mean, great band.
Yeah, I mean, they fit alongside, early hardcore. They could go with Black Flag. They could also go with, like, Lifetime, which is more on the, I guess, the emo adjacent side of hardcore, but it fit along all those bands.
Absolutely. And Silent Drive, I'm happy that they're back. New record is killer. It's just great.
Yeah, their first record came out in 2004.
Yeah.
And then it came out in 2022. The Casket Ladder's taken a couple hiatuses, but I don't think we've taken an 18-year hiatus like that.
Well, yeah, Zach talked about some of those hiatuses, but folks, we're not going to ruin it for you. We're going to get to that interview momentarily. But first, my pleas for your support. And folks, you can support the New Scene in the following ways. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at New Scene Pod. I'm trying to get us over 3,700 followers on Instagram. We've been hanging in the wind for a while. So if you're not following us on Instagram, give us a follow. You have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Also, make sure you follow our main and Clips YouTube channels. Full episodes on the main channel, highlights from our favorite episodes on the Clips channel. They're linked to each other. Just search The New Scene on YouTube. Like and subscribe and comment. All of that helps us out a great deal. Don't forget, you can support us directly by purchasing the New Scene Life is Music is Life long sleeve shirt. Now, if somehow you have not seen or heard about this shirt yet, you're missing out. It's probably the best shirt ever created, if I'm being humble. Head on over to the store at Death Wish Inc. Search The New Scene. The shirt will pop right up. Your purchase of that shirt helps directly fund the show. It's the best way to help us out right now, besides the reviews. So thank you. Thank you to everybody who supports us and to everyone who has purchased a shirt. And last but not least, reviews. We need Apple Podcast and Spotify reviews. We are around 75 reviews for both Apple and Spotify. So thank you so much to everybody who has submitted a 5-star review. Give us a 5-star review. Open up the app, hit that 5-star button if you like the podcast. And if you write a nice review in Apple Podcasts, I'll read it on the air. So thank you. We're so close to 100. Get us to 100. And then I'll take a 2-week break from asking for reviews. Doesn't that sound nice, Stacy?
It sounds fantastic.
Yes. Yes, the listeners of the show need a break. But look, we're close. We're getting closer. Thank you. So, okay. And of course, folks, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. There's plenty happening over at Iodine. Jonah Matranga and Josh English of Attempt Survivors just did an artist-on-artist interview. If you haven't seen those, check it out. You can find it over at the Iodine Recordings Instagram page. That's at Iodine Recordings. It's great. I mean, your favorite artists interviewing your favorite artists. Check it out. Also, speaking of Jonah Matranga, there's a one-line drawing enamel pin available now in the Iodine Recordings store. And yes, it is of R2-D2, so you have to get it. I mean, you just have to. It's awesome looking. Go pick that up. Don't forget to pre-order the Darling Fires Distortions. Pre-orders are up. You want it. Trust me. I've heard the record. It's awesome. The single Machina is out now. It's great. It's great. All right. So let's move on to some music recommendations. Okay. Now, folks, I'm back on Greet Death. I cannot get enough of this band. I love everything they do. I've been reaching back into the discography. So if you haven't heard it yet, check out the song You're Gonna Hate What You've Done. I heard it the other day. It's everything I love. I love the vocals. I love the guitar work. It sounds like my favorite bands. I was walking, listening to it, and as soon as the song ended, I restarted it and listened to the whole thing again. So, yeah, you know it's good if I'm doing that. I mean, come on. Also, check out our friends in Chiefland. Now, they have a new single out. It's called Pretty Good Run, and it almost just sounds like a straightforward alternative rock song. You know, I don't like to use the word emo so much, but it's like, you know, the softer rock with a bit of an edge, and I love it. I love it. I love everything they've done. I love both new singles they've put out. I can't wait to hear more. You can hear my recommendations on the New Scene Spotify 2022 playlist. I'm going to add both of these songs. Go check it out. You can hear my recommendations. You can hear all of our guests. It's a one-stop shop, so go check it out. So, Stacy, what are you into these days? What are you listening to? Lay it on us.
I've been listening to a lot of Woodkid. That's something I discovered through Hideo Kojima's video game Death Stranding.
Ooh.
Yeah, he has like a really great musical taste, and that whole game has nothing but like great music from Churches and Low Roar. And when he did the director's cut of the game, he released a trailer for it, which had a song called Goliath by Woodkid, and it's kind of electronic, almost like a Bjork with a male singer. And I got super into it, and that's all I've been listening to lately. It's like a 2021 record, but that's all I've been listening to since that trailer dropped.
That sounds amazing. You have to text that to me. Stacy, do you ever listen to video game music just like throughout the course of your day?
Mainly like musical artists that are featured in video games. I don't like listen to like the Castlevania soundtrack from the 8-bit era, like that like bit tune stuff. I don't listen to that. I don't get that nostalgic for it. But yeah, I do listen to like inspired by video game style music.
Got you. I actually listen to the 8-bit music, not when I'm like walking around outside and stuff, but if I'm sitting in front of the computer, I'll be like, I really want to hear Crash Man's music from Mega Man 2, so I'll throw it on.
Yeah, I think the last time we talked about Splatterhouse and Castlevania games and how great the soundtracks were. And I think I turned you on to a couple documentaries where they talk about the BitTune music and stuff that were in there. And yeah.
The Splatterhouse documentary was really good. And once I get into Sega emulation, I'm going to play those games because they look great. I just have to.
You need to get yourself a Shield TV, man. Those things are the best like emulation machines ever.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they're like $200, and it's NVIDIA Shield. It's made by the graphics card company, and they're just fantastic. You can just sideload all kinds of emulators on there, everything from NES to NEC to Dreamcast to PlayStation, pretty much everything.
We're going to have to talk more about this, but folks, check back in with me in segment 3. We'll talk about the conversation with Zach. We'll talk about how we're doing. We'll find out what's going on with Stacy and the Casket lottery. But folks, right now, we are going to speak to Zach Jordan. Enjoy. All right, folks, we're here now with Zach Jordan. Zach, welcome to the show.
What's up, Keith?
Hey, it's great to have you here, Zach. You know, you have done an incredible amount in music. You know, all of your work with Bane over the years. We've got a new Silent Drive album coming out. I'm excited about that. And we're going to get to all that. But first, Zach, I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm home for 4 days. I just got off tour with Turnstile, and that ran right from a Code Orange tour. So I'm happy to be home for 4 days. I went to the beach today, and yeah, now I'm just hanging out at night. Probably going to go to the movies after this. So I'm doing good.
That sounds fantastic. What are you going to see?
I'm going to go see that new movie Men, which I don't know if it's going to be good. Some reviews have been but I'm still going to give it a shot. We'll see what happens.
You have to try. I like going to the movies, even if the movie isn't great. I saw the last movie I saw was the newest Batman, and I didn't love it. But it's nice to go to the movies with friends and sit there and eat popcorn.
Exactly.
You can't beat it.
Exactly. Yeah. I dug the new Batman, but
yeah, I'm stuck on Dark Knight.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm like, they're never going to be able to top that, and I shouldn't compare it necessarily, but I just can't help myself.
Yeah, we went on Code Orange tour twice, and both times we were like, Dark Knight still kills it.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that.
It's a high watermark. But you got off of a tour with Code Orange and then went right on a tour with Turnstile?
Yeah, I was home for like 13 hours and then flew out and joined up with Turnstile for their run.
So you're witnessing musical history just back to back, because Code Orange is massive in the world of heavy music. And I haven't seen anything like Turnstile since, I don't know, At the Drive-In.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I've been touring with both bands for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, as far as being kind of a like a touring crew member with them. Bane had toured with both of them for years. So I've known both bands for probably over, almost 12 years, something like that. Yeah, Code Orange has kind of jumped to that kind of next level in the metal world. We did a month with Korn. That was all like arenas. And then they went out and did 6 weeks as a headlining band and crushed it on that. And the last time I was out with Turnstile was before the pandemic. And so this was this was new for me as far as how big of a jump they've made. And yeah, the first show that, the first day of the tour that I was on, I kind of just like sat there and teared up because I was so proud of them. So it's exciting for both bands. It's awesome to be a part of it for sure.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. How are those Turnstile shows? I mean, I imagine a very large mix of people, because it seems like everybody likes Turnstile, no matter what you're into.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because, to me, they are a hardcore band, but to me, the last time I toured with them, they were kind of still in that hardcore world. And now they're, like you said, literally everybody is there. It's wild. It's from, like kids with Slipknot hats on and moms and soccer moms. And then kind of like this MTV crowd.
Yeah.
A very, very college crowd now. And then they've managed to keep all the hardcore kids too. And it just makes this insane show, but it's awesome, man. It's, sometimes that those worlds can collide, and it doesn't work out well as far as like people being tolerant in the pit and stuff like that. But this is all fun, man. It's just it's a cool thing.
That's another reason I'm asking, because when we came up, Zach, I would be very scared for a band like Turnstile to be blowing up back in that day, because any type of crossover, and there was going to be big trouble. Like if there was a metal band playing with a hardcore band and the metal kids didn't understand how the hardcore kids worked, there was going to be a fight, and it was going to be bad. But I feel like that's not as much of a thing nowadays.
Yeah, it's not right now. I'm with you. I came back, back in the day, I came up as a metal kid starting in the hardcore world, and there were those crossover bands like Biohazard or even Sick of It All that had a very metal crowd and a very hardcore crowd. And yeah, I saw some brawls in those days between those two crowds, and I didn't know, I was a metal kid crossing over into the hardcore world, and I just didn't, I stayed out of it for the most part. But yeah, I didn't know I was kind of scared for a lot of those years.
How did you convert? How did you go from metal to hardcore?
So it's a kind of a crazy story because in Massachusetts, in Worcester, the city that I grew up in, we would have kind of these crossover thrash / hardcore nights where thrash bands would play with hardcore bands. And one of the first ones that I can remember anyway, I was already into Biohazard, Sick of It All, bands like that, but those guys were on MTV, so things that were on Headbangers Ball was what was on in my world. Then there were some local thrash bands that I would go see, and they actually played with Converge, and it was like one of those crossover nights because Converge was like kind of metal enough to fit in that thrash world, but they were very much a hardcore band back then. And this is like the early 90s. So that kind of led me to going to more Converge shows. And then that led me to like Overcast and just a bunch of different local bands that were kind of more metallic than they were hardcore. And then I ended up, this is a kind of a crazy story. I just told it the other day. I was at a venue in Fitchburg, Massachusetts called Club 490. And Jamie Josta of Hatebreed, who back then was in a band called Josta 14, had a distro set up. And I was still very much a metal kid, kind of had my hair pulled back, had a hat on, trying to fit into this hardcore world. And I just like walked up to him and asked him, hey, I'm into this music, or I'm getting into it. Is there any band that you think I should check out? And he handed me a Judge record. And then that was it, man. Like literally went from Judge to Killing Time to Burn. And then years later, I was in metal bands at the time. And then, a couple of years later, Aaron from Converge was starting Bane and ended up asking me if I wanted to play second guitar on it. And it was kind of full circle. It was very strange.
Yeah, look at that. And that's amazing that Jamie Josta put you on to Judge too.
I don't think he knows that story. I don't think he knows it. I've Bane has toured with Hatebreed. It's just something that I don't think I've ever brought up to him. And so, yeah, he's semi-responsible for me kind of making the full jump to like the real hardcore world.
I also never knew there was a band called Josta 14, and I like that.
Yeah, that's where that's kind of where his last name came from. He was in a band called Josta 14, and he just became Jamie Josta back in the day.
So is that not his real last name?
Yeah, I don't know if he wants that to be public knowledge, but
I see. Well, we'll edit this part.
No, you don't have to. I don't think he cares. If you dig deep enough, you'll know for sure.
Oh, so that's how you get hooked up with Bane. There was a lot of incredible music in Boston and all the surrounding areas at the time. The list of bands goes on, and I think Bane stands out because it wasn't the more crunchy metallic hardcore. It was more of like an old school melodic thing. How did that come about?
Yeah, so Aaron Dahlbeck was in Converge, and they were, kind of that more metallic hardcore. And he just wanted to have a straight up hardcore band that was just going to be fast. It was going to be Youth Crew. And there were bands like that kind of coming out in the area, like 10 Yard Fight, In My Eyes, bands like that. And I think he just initially aimed for it to be this kind of part-time band that would maybe play some shows in the area, put out a demo, maybe a 7-inch, and originally had only recorded the demo as a 4-piece. So the demo's recorded as a 4-piece without me. There's no second guitar. There is a guitar on it, but he played both guitars. And then I think as the band was getting more active in the scene, maybe after like 2 or 3 shows, they thought like, oh, we better get somebody else to play guitar on these, when we're playing these live shows. And so I knew their bass player at the time, Pete Chilton, and he had just kind of said, hey, I know this kid, Zach. He's I don't know. He's this hardcore kid that is a little bit more in the metal world, but still goes crazy on stage and can play guitar like crazy. So I don't know if you want to have him try out. Aaron Dahlbeck, who I had seen in passing, had never really met, was like, yeah, let's see how it goes. I drove out to Andover, which is where they used to practice, had one practice, and then I think was in at that point. They kind of always, there's this joke that's been around for years that they never like officially asked me to be in the band. They were like, yeah, let's see how it works out. And then like 21 years later, there I still was. So
Yeah. So you might technically not be in the band, is
yeah,
what you're telling
exactly.
me.
Yeah. They could take back all rights on all the songs that I wrote and stuff like that. But
So was that tryout like stressful? Did you have anything to learn ahead of time? What'd you do?
yeah, so at the time, I think it was just the 4-song demo that they had. They did have a couple other songs written, but they were primarily playing just on like a 6-song set list back then. So they had 6 songs. I went in knowing 4 of them. I think they probably taught me 2 at the practice just to see if, if I could catch on quickly. And to be honest, like I think I feel like I was a little more cocky back then about my playing than I would even be now. Now, if a band asks me to play, it's been so long since I've had to like try out and impress or kind of make the band, so to say, that I would be a wreck. There's bands that I filled in for every now and then. This band, Stick to Your Guns, I did a bunch of shows with a couple years ago, and going into that, I was like, I was a nervous wreck because I don't know, my brain, it just doesn't work the same way that it used to, and I feel like as far as learning, all these guitar riffs and stuff, it just doesn't stick. Back then, I just went in. I felt like I learned it all pretty quickly, and yeah, it just went really smoothly. Bane was always like we were a lucky band as far as any member changes. We always just had like these guys that would come in and kill it. And, even when we changed drummers here and there, or, bass players, people would grow up and have kids and then leave. And anybody that replaced anybody kind of just always came in knowing everything. And so it was very, very easy for us to, change from one person to the other as long as we got along with that person.
Right. That seems to be the key, is going in knowing a lot of the music. I've done 2 tryouts. One, I didn't learn anything and it went very poorly. And one, I learned some things and ended up joining the band. So there you go.
That's amazing. Yeah. I kind of always, I just practice to the point of feeling like I can almost get on stage if I need to that day. And it was the same with Bane. I mean, there may be some things that this is, I guess the internet was around, but people weren't like sending videos back and forth to like learn stuff. Now it's kind of easy. You can just send somebody, the guitar player that's in the band can send you how the song goes. You can just sit there and learn it by watching a video of him playing it. Back then I was learning it all from ear, and I just would go in, and I think, if they showed me anything, it was just, hey, you're playing this part a little bit wrong. This is how it goes. We'd tweak it, and then, yeah, that was it.
How does it go from side project to full-time gig?
So it was side project for years and years until Bane was getting a little bit more busy. Converge was getting very, very busy. And it came down to, I think, Aaron Dahlbeck having to make a decision on whether he was going to continue with Converge or continue with Bane. I don't think he had the time for both. And Converge kind of gave him their blessing to be like, hey, Bane is kind of really your band. We know how much you love it. And, we understand if you have to kind of go that route. And so that's kind of the route that he went. And at that point, it just kind of opened up the door for us to do anything that we could. And back then, I mean, we were kids that were excited to just, we never thought we were going to get out of Massachusetts, like we were excited to play a show in New England, never mind play a weekend of shows down to, Virginia or something like that. And then we started getting offers to do, weeks here and then full US tours. And it was like, holy, like, this is crazy that this is happening. And everything that, anything that was offered to us was kind of more than we ever thought we'd be offered, as far as, a full US, then a full Europe. Then we go to Japan, we go to Southeast Asia, we go to South America. And so anytime we ever got to do any of that stuff, we just felt very, very grateful. And as those things kind of kept piling on, we just became addicted to it and kind of just took almost anything that came our way. So it kept us busy from, 95 is when we got together, and we broke up in 2016. So it's funny because when the pandemic hit, that was the longest I'd ever been off the road. And before that, I think maybe like 6 months of not being on the road with Bane was, that's about how long I had not been on the road for before the pandemic. So
All that time, only 6 months.
yeah, I don't think there was a whole year that went by where, we weren't out for at least 6 months out of that year.
You must really love it because Bane is done now and you're still out with other bands all the time, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. Sometimes I'll think my brain is broken because it takes, some people hate it. Some people go on the road and they hate it. Some people love touring the United States because it's comfortable. And then they hate Europe. Some people never even try to get over to, Japan or Southeast Asia. And I just always wanted to go everywhere. And when Bane was done, 2016, I ultimately thought that I was going to be finished touring. I had said to myself, well, that was a good run. I'm lucky. I had 21 years of doing it, going all over the world. I cannot complain about that. And had prepared myself to kind of just be a full-time adult as far as, I'll get a job and see what happens from here. I had no experience with any of that. I went to college, I got my degree, and Bane kind of waited for me to get done with that to go, really full steam ahead. But since I graduated college, I haven't used my degree for one single day. So I'm grateful for that, but also don't know how to do like real life, like as far as like I've had jobs where I've sat in offices. I don't think I'm bad at it, but definitely always had that break of like, oh, the tour, there's a tour on the horizon. So that kind of keeps me sane as far as like, I'm not a real adult yet. And so 2016 hit, Bane broke up, and I kind of had a mini breakdown as far as like, oh man, like this is it. I have to start real life now, which didn't seem very fun to me, but I don't know. I did okay for about a year and a half. And then Code Orange is actually the band that hit me up 2018. And they were like, hey, would you ever want to hit the road again? And I didn't know if it was something that I would want to do, but I was already really good friends with them. I knew that I always had fun touring with them. So yeah, I took that offer and have kind of been on the road since then. And then the process all happened again when the pandemic hit. I freaked out again. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, this is what I do for a living. And now I can't, the pandemic's going to throw me off the road, which I thought at the time, like everybody was going to last maybe like 2 or 3 months. And then music got kicked out for like 2 years. So
yeah, very unexpected. Very unexpected. What do you do when you tour with bands? Does it depend on the band?
Yeah, I kind of have my hands in a bunch of different things. So I drive tour buses. There's a company called Bandwagon, which are like kind of smaller tour buses that I have learned how to drive those. So I do those for some bands. I guitar tech for other bands, and then I tour manage for other bands. So it really depends on the band that is asking me to go out. And some bands I do a bunch of those things at the same time.
Yeah, I always thought it would be the dream to be touring with a band. I did a couple tours with a friend's band, and I sold merchandise for them. And then I think it was 3 months, a full US all summer. And I think a couple weeks in, I was just like getting all the merch out of the bag and organizing everything. And I was like, this is just a job. This is just a job like anything else. But it's more fun because you're young and you're out with your friends and you're at these gigs every night. It's better than sitting in an office.
Totally. I've been the merch guy as well for some of these bands. And it becomes long days and, you're on your feet a lot, and I can see how it can become a job. But yeah, I guess for me, that's where the brain being broken part is, it comes in because it just never really feels like work for me when I'm out there. I'm just and I'm out there you're out there for 24 hours a day. It's not like you go home and chill in your bed at night. When you're out there and, depending on the band, some are more comfortable than others as far as tours go. And, some are crazier and more hectic. Bane never had we never had it easy as far as like tour buses or multiple hotel rooms, things like that. We slept on the floor a lot of years in the beginning when we were going from city to city, we'd just be begging kids would ask us if we needed a place to stay, and we'd say, yeah. We'd drive to the kid's house, grab the sleeping bag and the pillow out of the back of the van, and sleep on the floor. And that happened for a long time. Actually happened until we did a tour with Hatebreed in 2002, because those shows were bigger, and those kids that were kind of willing to put us up weren't heading out to those shows, and we were like, holy crap, we have no place to sleep, so it's either sleep in the van or get a hotel room. And I think that was maybe the first tour that we ever consistently got one hotel room for 6 people to share. So it'd be 2 double beds or 2 queen beds and then 2 guys on the floor. And I bought I got like one of those REI camping mats that would blow up like 2 inches thick or whatever. And it was super comfortable for me. So I was this weirdo that then slept on the floor for the rest of the band's career. I literally slept on the floor in a hotel room until 2016.
Really?
Yeah. Everybody would ask me like, what are you crazy? Like, why don't you take one of the beds or like get another room or whatever? And I'm just like, man, this mat feels the same way every night. I don't have to worry about if the bed's hard or soft or whatever. I can go to sleep. Nobody messes with me. I don't have to worry about the other guy in the bed moving around or tossing and turning. Just get on my mat, get my sleeping bag, and go to bed.
I would be the same as you. I would have like a little corner and just have my sleeping bag, because I don't want to worry about rolling into the other guy or if he's going to get mad if I move around too much. I just want my little corner and that's it.
Yeah, and it's really where I was most comfortable. Yeah, it's weird. Obviously, like since then, like every now and then Bane would go to Europe and we'd be on a tour bus over there because another band that we'd be touring with would be big enough to have a tour bus. And so we'd be on a bus, and it was much better than sleeping on the floor in a hotel room. But, so depending on the band that I'm, the bands that I go out with now, sometimes we're in a big tour bus and it's very comfortable, but I'm also still down to sleep on the floor if I need to.
And do you still have to sometimes?
I still choose to sometimes. Yeah, it's weird. I was hitting the road with Every Time I Die for a bunch of years, and they were like, oh, you can have this bed. And I'm like, no, I brought this mat. I'll just sleep on the floor. And they're like, but you can have this bed. And I'm like, or you can have the bed by yourself and I can sleep on my mat on the floor, which I'm very, very excited about. And they're like, okay, dude, like who's this crazy guy that we brought out on the road? But in the end, it worked out great. That guy got his own bed and I got my mat.
You're like Tom Hanks at the end of Castaway when he comes home from the island. And he's like laying on the floor and flicking the lamp on and off.
It's exactly what it's like, man. I seriously think that it brings back the good times of being in Bane for me. And it's a weird nostalgia thing. Like I'll do a tour or, a week of shows with a band where it's just an actual van, 15 passenger van and trailer. And I get in it and I'm like, yes, like this is like, I love it. I don't know. It's weird.
I love that you love it because I'm 40 years old now, and I don't know that I could do that. If I had my own band and we had the opportunity to do some tours and stuff, I'm sure I could do it and it would be fun. But sitting here in my apartment with my many toys and bed and everything, it's just I'm like, well, this is it.
Yeah, I got used to it during the pandemic as far as being home, being in the same bed every day, just the comforts of home. And so for the first tour that I went back out, it was a little bit of an adjustment again. And saying to myself, like, oh man, like maybe I can just be okay at home. And is this lifestyle out here not for me anymore? And then I just kind of quickly worked my way back into tour mode. And
were you freaking out during the pandemic because it ended up being like 2 years basically, and close to 2 years? I mean. You had never been home for that long.
Yeah, so for a lot of Bane, I worked at a counseling center in Worcester. And so they were always amazing to me as far as like, hey, whenever you want to work here, you got a place, just come back. And we'd love to have you, anytime we can get with you is better than no time. And so they were always very, very accommodating as far as letting me come back and work whenever I wanted to. And so that's just the route that I took when the pandemic hit. And they were an essential business, so they never closed down. So they were very happy to have me. The pandemic messed everyone up mentally, so places like counseling centers really needed to be open. And So I had a place to go for sure, work wise. As far as being home, I didn't know that, that as far as my relationship with the girl that I go out with, she's like the most amazing person in the world. But at the time, I had been gone for 6-7 months a year, our whole relationship. So there was always that break. It's real easy to get along with somebody when they're gone half the year,
Yeah.
like you're never in each other's hair, or when you are, you're like happy that they're there. And so the pandemic hit, and it was like, oh man, here we go. Like it would for everybody, a lot of relationships. It's like, here we go. Like we're together all the time now. And so this is either going to work or it's not going to work. And it ended up being better than I ever thought it could be. And we got along great. So that was really my only worry, was like, oh, I hope she doesn't want to kill me after like being home for 2 months, which I never had been, and no, it was great. Our biggest decision every day or argument would be like, what we bought a humongous movie screen and a projector. And we were like, all right, we're doing this pandemic, right? And because theaters all closed down. And so that was our biggest argument every day, was what movie to watch, or biggest decision, I should say.
That's great if that's the biggest decision to make. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was totally fun. So I got very comfortable in the pandemic, but I knew when I had been committed to a bunch of tours, that were going to happen when the pandemic hit. And so when the pandemic, or when things opened back up, those tours were rescheduled. And so I knew in my head I had to at least make those tours because I'd already committed to them. A lot of crew people and a lot of people just bounced. They became too comfortable at home and just decided that the road wasn't for them anymore. And I had thought, I need to at least, I've been committed to these. I need to see that through. And so, I did those tours and then just got comfortable back on the road again.
I haven't seen a reaction to a live band quite like the reactions I saw to Bane. People just went off and they absolutely loved every minute of that. How soon did you start seeing that?
Bane is the luckiest band that ever lived, as far as I'm concerned. Because I didn't play in Bane for the first couple shows. I went to the first show as a fan, and it was a show opening up for other bands, but the show was still like a huge show, being, back then like 300 kids. And I went to the show to see Bane. I was very excited about it because it was this new band from this guy from Converge, and the singer was in this band called Backbone back in the day. And I was a fan of both of those bands. So I had the demo for maybe about a month at that point, and I was just so excited to go sing along, but I didn't know how the reaction was going to be. And I show up, and I think they were the first band to play. There's already 300 kids there that are also excited, and they started playing, and the whole place just erupted. And I was like, well, this is crazy. Like, this is back in the day, bands would come through like Strife or Earth Crisis, Snapcase. Those are the bands that would get these huge reactions. And not that Bane was ever at that level in the beginning, but that was like what I thought was the dream. I was like, those guys are like living the dream. Like they're from, New York or California or whatever, and they can come to Massachusetts and the place goes bananas. And I was like, that's where I got to get, man. And when I went to that first Bane show, it was like that. And I was like, I got to get in this band. It's like, they need another guitar player. How do I get in this band? And it was truly, I never reached out to anybody about being in the band. Maybe I said to the bass player at one point, because I was kind of jealous that he was in the band. I was like, if they ever need a guitar player, man, you better put my name in the hat. And he did. And it ended up working out. And so, yeah, I would like to, we grinded really hard for a bunch of years as far as like US tours went, because once we left our bubble in Massachusetts or New England, where our shows were kind of always awesome from the very beginning, we would then hit Chicago, Detroit, go across country and play for 30 kids, 40 kids a night. But we were just excited to be playing. And so the kids that were there, the 30, 40 kids that were there, were excited to see us. We were excited to play. And we all just went crazy together. And we then got to the West Coast on that first US tour. And we had really good shows on the West Coast. which at the time, like, that was crazy to us. We couldn't believe that we could play California and have anybody know us, never mind, 100 kids know us. And so we were just so excited about that. And then we kind of just kept going and going and going, and 50 kids would turn into 75. And then, probably around the time that our first like full length came out, so maybe like 3 or 4 years after the band really got together, was when we could do a full US tour and have it be kind of, we would know that things would be good in almost all the major markets anyway. There'd still be some like not even bummer shows. We just knew that, like, some shows were going to still have only like 100 kids at them, but a lot of the shows would, still have 300-400 kids at them, and they'd all be going crazy. And so any shows that weren't great, we knew that there would be shows that were going to be great in the future. And so just keep kind of cruising along. And, Bane was never a band that drew thousands of kids a night like some hardcore bands can do now. We just had our reliable 500 to 1,000 kids that would come out, on a lot of nights, and we'd all just hang together and sing our asses off. And it was, it's where we were comfortable. We never wanted to make the jump, or at least we never tried to make the jump. Equal Vision, the label that we were on, they would always kind of back in the day be like, 2005-ish was when every band was making videos. And they were like, you got to make a video. And Aaron Bedard, our singer, was just really kind of against it. He thought it was cheesy. It's very easy to put out a video and look cheesy in it, And so it just was not our thing. We all kind of backed him on that. And sometimes we're like, maybe we should have gone that video route. But
so you never made the video?
Nah, well, we made one. Probably when we realized it was when the final record, Don't Wait Up, came out. It also came out on a label in Europe, and that label was like, hey, we'll fly you over to Europe, we'll pay for everything, and all we need you to do is play one show and have these 2 cameras follow you around. You won't have to like stand in front of a camera like singing to lip syncing to music or anything like that. Like, you just play the show, we'll fly you over to Europe, you can have a vacation, we'll pay for everything, but we just want to do this video. Are you cool? And we were like, oh, a free trip to Europe, let's do it. And we had been over there like 30 times. It's not like we haven't been to Europe, but it was just like another chance to go over to Germany and, play a show over there. And so we did it. It was for a song called Final Backward Glance. And the video came out probably I think before the record came out, and then was instantly like the biggest song off of the record, because it had a video. And that's when we looked at each other and we're like, oh, this is what they were talking about. Like, this is what they wanted. Actual promotion for a record. I don't know. I look back, we were probably so hard to deal with for these, with these record labels. But
yeah, when you're young and hard-headed, you make a bigger deal out of certain things, and it's like you don't see the bigger picture. And I'm not saying it was like the wrong decision not to do the video or anything, but I'm just thinking about my own experiences. I would be like, no, this has to be this, but it's like, it didn't really matter that much.
Yeah. I mean, we just came from an era back in the 90s where like hardcore bands just didn't have videos. They didn't make videos,
Yeah.
And we were hard-headed when it came to that.
Between The Note, the 2005 record, and Don't Wait Up, that's 2014. That's a long time between records.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, were you touring that whole time? Was the band together that whole time?
Yeah, together the whole time. And Bane, being a lucky band, was also, because of that luck, kind of very lazy as far as records go. In the beginning of our career, we put out records pretty regularly because the record label was like, hey, like every couple of years, bands put out records. Why have we gone 3 years without a record? And we're like, oh crap, yeah, we better do something. But then the Note came out, and for a very long time, shows were just good for us. And we were never the kind of band that had all these all these songs, kind of in the vault for the next record. We were never actively writing as a band. We were just actively touring as a band. So when you're on the road with each other for 6 months out of the year, when we were home, we didn't hang. We weren't like a band that got together and practiced and wanted to write records together. Not because we didn't get along with each other, but it's like, I just lived with you for a month, all day, every day. Like when I'm home in between, I'm happy to see other people besides you.
Right.
And I think we all kind of felt the same way. So we would only write records when it was kind of necessary to do it. And the Note came out in 2005 and things were just good as far as touring goes until about 2012, when we went to Europe, and it was we had just definitely seen a decline in our fan base as far as kids coming out to shows. And at that point we had thought, we like didn't even think like, oh, it's not because we didn't put a record out for 7 years. Kids just don't like us anymore. And so at that point we had like kind of had a talk about, do we need to call it a day? Are kids just over Bane? We don't want to be this washed up band that doesn't know it. That was always our biggest worry, And then at that time, our friend Stu was playing bass for us. We came back from Europe, and he was like, at some point around that time, it might have been before Europe, he was going to have another kid. He had said to us, hey, I need to slow things down, or I really can't tour that much anymore. He had left the band, and I think we went to Europe actually with Chris Linkovich, who now plays bass in Terror. And then we came back from that. The tour didn't go that great. We all sat down, had a talk. Aaron Dahlbeck, the guitar player at the time, who was planning on having a kid, had said, yeah, maybe we slow the band down a lot. I don't want to be gone if I'm going to have this kid. I don't want to be gone from home where I can't watch it grow up and all this stuff, which I completely understood. But there were some disagreements there as far as the band should keep going full time. The band should, only do 2 or 3 months out of the year when we can just kind of handpick what we do, as opposed to like just try to stay busy the whole year. And nobody won, because in the end we all just collided and said, you know what, if one guy was like, if it can't be this way, then like screw it, I don't want to do it. And the other, well, if it can't be my way, blah blah blah. And then we looked at each other and we were like, all right, let's plan the ending. And so then we wanted to put out one more record. We knew that, and I think originally we were like, let's just put out a 7-inch and then we'll call it a day. And we started writing a 7-inch, which turned into 6 songs. And then at that point we were like, we already have 6 songs, let's just write 10 more songs. And then that's when Don't Wait Up came out. And we knew a year before that record came out that was going to be our final record. But then with the hype of a new record, the hype of it being our final record, kids not knowing if they were going to be able to see us again, the shows were then more insane than ever. So then we looked at each other and we were like, fuck, what did we just do? like this is, like it's better than it's ever been now, but we've already kind of announced the ending, and
you were almost out, and now you've restoked the flames.
Well, it's no turning back at that point. And, we can't turn back from it. We announced it was our final record. I don't know. What are you going to do? Like, there's nothing cheesier going, oh, well, it's good now again. So we decided to stay together.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, let's just go. We had already made the agreement. Like, we'll go hard for the next 2 years, and we'll go everywhere that we have been or wanted to go one more time. And then that took 2 more years. And so then 2016, we were done. But yeah, as far as the years in between the Note and Don't Wait Up, it was literally just us being lazy, not wanting to write a full length. And the only reason that we wrote it was because we thought like, well, we should put one more thing out before the band is over. And then because the band was going to be over, we didn't give a shit. This sounds bad, but I don't mean it to sound bad. Like we just wrote it for us. We didn't, because it didn't matter if kids liked it. Like if it was trashed, like, all right, well, we're done anyway, so who cares? Like, rather go out on a high note, but we're going to write this record for us. And then it ended up being like one of our most successful records. So
that's excellent. Yeah. That's funny. Like 9 years between records. That's like the entire lifespan of bands nowadays. Like they debut in 2005, they put out a record, they break up, and then like they would reunite in 2014 with the new record. But you guys just did that in the course of normal business.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't know why it worked out that way. No, we just felt like nobody was begging for another record. So it's like, why we don't love, like, we love, it's crazy because we love when we're writing songs and we get the rush of like, holy shit, that's it. That's a song. Like we have just figured out, like, that's the way the song should go. Like, we get that rush as far as like, like, yes, like this part belongs here and this and this. And then recording, we love recording. It's weird how our brains work, because then when it comes time to procrastinate and not write anything, we're very, very good at it.
Oh yeah, I do that too. I'm not the type of person who has songs and songs and songs in the vault. I struggle to finish a song.
Yeah, it's I don't some like when we were out with Hatebreed in 2002, Perseverance came out, and Jamie was like, "Oh yeah, I got like 50 more songs like in the vault." And I'm like, "Oh my god, that's like that's how many songs I'm going to write for the rest of my life." Like, that's what I thought at the time. I was like, 50 songs. There's bands I tour with now that will write 30 songs to get the best 13 for the record, And I'm like, God, like, these guys are amazing, because I just can't do it, man. Like, I just can't write song after song. It just doesn't work. I maybe Bane for one record would write 15 songs and pick the best 10. But the 5 that don't make it on the record, like, never even really made it to like being full songs anyway. Like, we would get halfway through writing and be like, "Oh, this song sucks. Let's get out of it. Let's get rid of it."
That's what I do too. I don't have full songs that are shelved. And it's like when I'm writing, it's like I can feel it. I can feel if it's going to be an actual song or not. So if it's not, it's just, I don't know, it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the last show is in 2016. So you reunited for Brendan Stu McGuire. Now, this was, for folks, in case you don't know, this was the bass player for Bane. He passed in 2021, correct?
Yep.
Yeah,
Correct.
So we played some memorial shows.
Yeah, Stu we called him Stu. His name was Brendan, but everybody called him Stu. He used to tour with the Dropkick Murphys, and he kind of got nicknamed he was in a band called Reach the Sky, and they were on tour with the Dropkick Murphys, and there's a long story about why he got named Stu on that, but that stuck, and so everyone called him Stu from that day forward. Stu got sick pre-pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and then he passed away. And the show we had, the memorial show was not supposed to be a memorial show. It was supposed to be a bucket list show for him. It was like, "Hey, tell me bands that you want to see one more time." Because at that point we knew things didn't look good. And so we were trying to do all these things that he wanted to do before he had passed away. And so the Bouncing Souls were one of the bands that he wanted to see before he had passed. And so initially it was going to be, so the show ended up being Bouncing Souls, Sick of It All, H2O. And like, those were the 3 bands that he really wanted to have on this show. And so I had reached out to all of those bands. I didn't know the Bouncing Souls at all. We knew Sick of It All. We knew H2O. They were, of course, or I didn't, we were ready to be like, "Just tell us what you need to play. It doesn't matter. We'll cover it." And they were like, "Are you crazy? Like, we're there." All the bands were like that, including the Bouncing Souls. And then this band, our friend's band Rebuilder, was going to play. They were all very good friends with Stu as well. And this was just like this dream show that Stu had put together. And he had called me and he had said, "Hey, I want Bane to play." And I was like, "Oh man," like, I had not been like, I had not felt like playing with Bane up to that point. Like, I didn't, I missed kind of being on the road with my friends, but at that point I hadn't really missed playing with Bane at all. And he was, so I was like, what, why? Like, is this because I'm part of the show, like setting up the show? Are you just asking because you feel like you have to do that to be polite? And he was like, "No, I want to try to play songs with you that night." He's like, "Bane was like one of the best times of my life. I would love to be up on that stage with you guys one more time." And so, we had said to ourselves, we're never going to play any shows ever again, but what do you do? When a friend asks you, you do it. And then unfortunately he had passed away, like, just a little over a week before the show happened. And so me and the guys in Bane kind of had just a quick meeting that was like, well, at this point we weren't announced to play this show, and we never got announced actually. We had talked, and I said, well, do we even do it? Nobody knows we're playing. It was only for him. And then his wife was like, what are you, crazy? Like, this is his dream show. Like, he wanted you guys to play. Like, you have to play it. And we were like, okay, let's do it. So it wasn't really a reunion. We never wanted to announce it because we didn't want it to overshadow what the event was. We didn't want it to become a Bane reunion. We didn't want it to be, because the Bouncing Souls, it was at this club in Boston called the House of Blues, as if you haven't heard about the House of Blues, but a big club, holds a couple thousand kids. It's the Bouncing Souls, Sick of It All H2O, and it was going to be sold out anyway. So we didn't want it to be like, oh, it's a Bane reunion, like, and kids just trying to like fly over here to see it or something like that. So we never announced it. We never told our friends. We told I had told my parents, like, hey, we're going to play. So if you want to see us play one more time, like, this is your chance. But as far as friends knew, we had friends backstage that were just there because they were friends with Stu. And we walked out with our guitars, like, ready to jump on that stage. And they were like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, here we go, baby. And oh my God, so it was exciting, but it was very emotional. We got together one time before the show to practice, and that was the only time we practiced in 5 years. And we got done with the first song of that practice, and we all just started crying.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, just hearing you, Zach, tell me the story now, and it's just so sad that Stu passed before he got to see the show. And I don't even know you guys personally, and I just feel it so much. So I can't imagine what you guys were going through.
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard in the sense that we hadn't played in that long together. So it was emotional there, in that aspect. But then as far as the show goes, like, we got into a circle right before we played that day, and we just hugged and we said, this is it. We got to go up there. Like, this is the last time we're ever going to do this again. And we fucking do this for Stu, man. And I don't want, I said to everybody, I don't want us to be up there a bumbling mess, crying and blah, blah, blah. Like, we will cry when we get off the stage. Let's just go up there and fucking kill it. And we just went up there and did our thing. And it wasn't a Bane show. So the whole place didn't go wild, but the 300 kids that knew us, that were there, that had no idea this was going to happen, made it seem like there were 2,000 kids going crazy.
That's great.
And so, yeah, it was very emotional. It had to happen. I don't know, but of course, then it sparks like the offers coming in to play shows and like, oh, Bane's back together, or, and we just haven't entertained a single thing since then. So,
yeah. And I mean, it's great that you had this thing together. So it's like a way to work through the passing of your friend together and release that energy and be with a community that supports you.
Yeah, exactly. And if we did any shows after that, it just would have cheapened the whole thing for us,
I mean, I think that's the best way to go out in the most spectacular fashion possible.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Silent Drive. Now, first album in 17 years, Fairhaven, coming out June 10th on Equal Vision Records, yes?
You got it. There's that laziness kicking in. 17 years.
Does that carry over to Silent Drive as well? Is that what's going on?
Not really. Silent Drive got together in 2004, and this band actually got together because we were all in a band called In Cartridge Funeral before that, with our friend Steve Neal, and in 2002 he actually got into a car accident and passed away, and we kind of started Silent Drive it was a kind of a dedication to him. So a lot of the songs on that first record that came out in 2004 were dedicated to his memory and stuff like that. And then Silent Drive was going at the same time as Bane. So Bane was going crazy. Silent Drive was trying to, tour as much as we could. And we never just felt like we fit in anywhere. The band we had kids that loved the band, but it wasn't enough kids where we could successfully do any kind of full US tour. We had done a couple of full US tours, and I'm sure promoters lost, or we lost money, promoters probably lost money, and it just never really took off the way that we thought it would take off. And then life just kind of got in the way as far as members getting busy around 2009. So we never officially hung it up or had played a last show. We just kind of just stepped away from it in 2009.
I feel like post-hardcore bands have it really tough, because I've talked to some of my favorite bands in the post-hardcore realm, and it just seems like they had a hard time fitting in. It's like if you didn't sound like Newfound Glory or Bane or Converge, like any of those major sounds that were going around, it was pretty hard to make it sounds like.
Yeah, it was because we were, two of us were in Bane that are in Silent Drive, me and Pete, the bass player. And so kids thought we belonged in the hardcore world, but then we'd play and kids were like, oh, this is nothing like Bane. But then we were like maybe a little too heavy to fit in that Newfound Glory world. And that was a world that we weren't very familiar with. We knew a lot of kids from that world because they came from, like Chad, Newfound Glory was in this band called Shai Halud, and, which is a very hardcore band. And, so we knew some kids in that world, but not enough connection wise to ever get on those tours. And if we had, they probably would have looked at us the same way as the hardcore kids looked at us, like, oh, this is not pop punk enough or whatever. And, so yeah, we never got the offers. We never made it into any kind of successful touring band world. And so, 5 years of eating shit, you kind of just reevaluate or you just don't have the drive anymore, no pun intended, but you just don't have the push to keep going if nobody cares,
Right.
So we loved it. We loved the music. We loved the one record that we put out at the time, but we thought we gave it what we should have, and really just agreed to. We never even agreed on anything. We just literally stopped practicing and went our separate ways.
Yeah, I've been in bands like that where we technically never broke up. It was just like, when are we going to practice again? Oh, I'll get back to you. And that was back in 2008. So, it just hasn't happened yet.
Right. And for us, it was like, we're writing a new record towards something that has not been successful at all. And so where's the put? Like you can't get any motivation from that really. And so yeah, I think at that time we just kind of bailed in 2009. We played one show in 2016 just because we were like, oh, it'd be fun to play a show in 2016. And we did that. It sold out. It was great. And at the time we were like, oh, we're going to finish a second record and we'll play more shows. And then we did the same thing. We just kind of stopped talking about it and never we never did a single thing again.
Well, now it's 6 years later and we have the record. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Record is done. And, that is mainly because pandemic. It was like, we have no excuse now. If we wanted to put out a second record, all we have is time now. We literally only have time. And we just did it. And that was it. It's it's a full length. It comes out in a couple weeks, which is crazy because, we started writing it in the beginning of the pandemic and we were having a hard time meeting like the deadline for the recording. Like we were like, we just have to book the recording, and that's the only way that we're ever going to finish writing the record is if we just actually have a hard deadline. And that was September of this year. And, September of last year. And then that got pushed off actually until the end of last year, just because we still weren't ready. And, but yeah, then we did it. We got 11 solid songs that I'm very, very proud of. And I think it blows the first record out of the water. I feel like we're a band that kind of knows our place a little bit more as far as like what we want to sound like. We're still a band that doesn't really, we aren't a band that's going to try to go out there and make this a full-time thing. If it happens, cool. If it doesn't, then whatever. But we, because of that, we didn't have the mentality of like, okay, we need to try to make this song sound radio friendly. We need to try to make this song sound whatever. And so because of that, the record is still kind of all over the place as far as like, what genre we might be. But it's just kind of the way we write. Like our guitar player is a very metal kind of writing, like he's just a metal kid. And he comes from a very metal background as far as, Megadeth, Slayer, all that kind of stuff, but then loves bands like Faith No More and also was in some hardcore bands. So for this record, for Love Is Worth It, which came out in 2004, I had a lot to do with the writing as far as, music goes. For this record, we basically, he would be like, hey, what do you think of this song? And if it was something that I was into, I was like, yes, let's move forward with this, like with this idea. And that didn't really, what am I trying to say? It didn't have to be a certain sound. So he would come at me with a metal song and I'd be like, dude, let's do it. I'll try to make the vocals be what bridges the gaps on this record. You know what I'm saying? So vocally, it'll kind of all sound similar across the board, but musically, let's go wild, So, there's songs on this that are very metal. There's songs on this that are, kind of more Incubus sounding. There's songs on this there's a song on this that's like Simon and Garfunkel sounding. And we just, when you have nothing to lose or nothing, I guess you think you have nothing to gain, like you just go with whatever you want to put out, which is very nice. It's freeing to like not have an audience to impress because you don't really have an audience in the first place.
I like the sound of that. I like the sound of being able to do everything in one band, right? Because then I don't have to divide it up under multiple bands. So it's like, it's almost like I can be in a metal band and a classic rock band and a post-hardcore band all in one shot.
Exactly. And he loves all kinds of music, so he would just bring me all kinds of music, and whatever we thought sounded good, no matter what genre it was, we were like, if it comes out awesome, let's just put it on the record. Like, who cares? So yeah, some kids are going to be like, oh, like this doesn't sound like, this record's all over the place. But for us, I think we're just an all over the place kind of band. I think that's what we realized this time around, is like, we're just going to write what we like to write, and what comes out, and we're very proud of it. I literally don't care. Obviously I want kids to like it. I would love it if the record blew up and became some kind of Turnstile record. But, ultimately I love the record. I'm very proud of it. I think it sounds amazing. And we worked our asses off on it. So there'll be kids that appreciate that and feel the same way. And then there's going to be some kids that will complain about how I sound too much like this person, or like how there was a comment on, I think, one of the videos that we put out, because this is a band that is actually, we shot 2 videos, which is the most foreign thing in the world to me, to sit in front of a camera while, your song is playing in the back and you're trying to make it look like you're really playing it. It's a very odd thing. But we did 2 videos for it, the record, and they've gotten amazing responses. But then there's been those comments that are like, this band's awesome if the singer wasn't in it, or like if this guy, or whatever. But it's so far from, like, I just don't care. It's crazy. Years ago, I would have, 2004 when that record came out, I would have probably been like, we got to change the way I sing, like this and that. But I'm too old to give a shit about this.
Yeah, at this age, you just do things the way you want to do them, and you do them well, and you put it out there, and that's it. I don't worry about the public perception per se. I mean, for some things, yes, but I'm not thinking about in terms of that. And it's like, and like you're talking about, I'm not worried about some random person on the internet critiquing something I'm doing. Like, all right, if Turnstile like went public on the internet and said, hey, you suck, then it would hurt, because they're actually creating something. But if it's just some guy, anonymous person who I don't even know, it's like, well, okay, you can have that opinion, but what are you doing? I mean, I'm making something. I'm putting something out there.
Exactly. I almost want to comment and be like, all right, listen, man, here's the thing. I'm going to send you all the instrumental versions of these songs, and if you can come out with something better than what I did, then dude, we'll put that out. Like, let's do that. I'll do that. And I guarantee you, like, he either wouldn't answer, or like, and if he did come up with something better, then cool, go that route. Like,
he's the singer
sick.
Now. There you go.
But yeah, it's if my friends don't like it, if bands that I respect don't like it, those are the ones that hurt. But yeah, these kids on the internet, like, but like I said, it's 1 out of every 2,000 comments out.
Yeah, and they're entitled to their opinion. Let them have
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fine.
I've complained about my bad experience.
I used to be one of those little shits on the internet because I wasn't involved in anything, and I think like subconsciously I was upset about it. So I was very vocal in my critiques of everything, and I don't know. I'm just glad I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, totally. I hear you.
And folks, there's 2 singles out there right now from Fairhaven: "Dearly Beloved" and "Prescription for Death." Definitely check them out. I was listening to it today. I absolutely love it. And it's funny, you mentioned the video. I was watching the video for "Dearly Beloved," and you guys are going off, and it's awesome, and everybody's into it. And I actually had the thought while watching the video, like, it must be so weird to film these because everybody's going ham, and I know they're not actually playing. Like, they probably just have the song playing in the background.
Yeah, it's a bizarre thing because I've never done it before, and you've got like these kind of PA speakers in front of you, and they they're like, oh, we can turn it up as loud as you want, but it's still not playing the song. I'm still not singing the song, which is crazy. And it takes hours, and I'm old, man. Like you gotta play like you're going crazy every time that camera's on. And I think we did a good job. I'm proud that, like we got through it, but man, after we shot both videos in the same day, and we just changed. We shot it in a building that, had 2 different settings, and, you just change clothes in between. But man, after that first video that day was done, I was like, who the fuck decided to do 2 videos in one day? Cause I feel like I'm going to die right now.
Yeah.
But
that's a lot.
Yeah. But it was super fun. I'm definitely more comfortable with it now than I was when they hit that play button on that first take, man. I was like, oh God, this is a nightmare.
I get it. I made a music video for my last band, and you can't see my face throughout the whole video. Basically, I was just too self-conscious. That's just how I am.
That would be like my dream, actually.
Yeah. Was it weird to be together and playing and writing again after all this time? I'm thinking about, like, if my first band in 2004, if we got together today and wrote another record, like, that would be nuts.
Yeah, it's our guitar player Nick. He's just kind of a writing machine. So he's the guy that has hundreds of songs written with, it was the part of the pandemic where people were kind of becoming comfortable with getting together with one another again. And he has kids, so he was a little more cautious about it. And once he was comfortable, I went over to his house and we just sat at that computer and listened through 100 songs probably.
Wow.
And we would just mark off which ones that we were both into, that I thought we should revisit. And then we just whittled it down to here's the core ones that I feel like we should work on idea wise. And, none of the songs were complete songs. They're all just kind of parts. And that's the way we have kind of always written with Bane or Silent Drive. We would come into the rehearsal space with parts of songs, never really full songs, So, I always loved it that way because everybody could kind of put their input in. So everybody felt like this song is ours as opposed to, oh, Zach wrote this song or Nick wrote this song. So this was the same. We sat down with these songs that were kind of parts that I thought, or that we thought were great. And then we would just kind of add on to those. And before we knew it, we were practicing as a full band and just working out the songs that way. And it's always, for me, it's always better to have 4 opinions than just one, none of us are none of us are cocky enough to be like, no, like this is the way it needs to be. Like this is the way it was written. We might have strong opinions about the next part or like this part has to stay or go, but we generally, we respect each other's opinions, and we've been in a band long enough together where our brains are on the same wavelength to the point where usually when a part in the song clicks, we know it.
Right.
And so, it wasn't that weird to get back together. It was weird to get back together because we're in the middle of a pandemic and nobody had been together,
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, we have to all trust each other. I think the first practice we like wore masks in the room together, and I don't know, I guess I must have taken mine off to sing parts, but I'm usually always actively singing parts even as the songs are being written to kind of feel out, like just to feel out lyrics or vocals or whatever, vocal ideas. But yeah, it felt pretty good again. We were psyched to do it, but like I said, we're still a band that Nick would write a record every year if he could. I just don't have it in me.
Me either. I'm not that prolific. I'm just not, and I need help from other people.
I'm just not vocally that practiced as far as, Aaron Bedard, singer of Bane, amazing writer. I feel like he could write, if you gave him 50 songs, he'd write lyrics to 50 songs. You give me 11 songs, it takes me months to figure out lyrics that I'm happy with to these 11 songs, And I'm very self-conscious about like, will my band like the lyrics? I don't, as kids, I'm happy if they like them, but I'm very self-conscious about if my band likes them, to the point where some of the lyrics on the record they didn't even know until we recorded them in the studio, and it's like, oh, it's too late now anyway. Like, like, hope you like it. And then,
does the band like? Do they care about the lyrics? Do they ask about them? The last band I did was the first time I ever sang and wrote lyrics. And I was like, oh, everyone's going to want to know what it's about, and they're going to like ask me about it. And no one cared. No one asked.
Yeah. I mean, they ask as far as Bane always had something to say in the lyrics.
Yeah.
Something kids could relate to as far as, like unity and all that kind of stuff. Silent Drive is a lot of, I write lyrics when I'm unhappy. Like that's when and I know a lot of singers do that, but like I feel like I can write the most when I'm going through something, depressing, or something big happens in my life. And when in September, when Stu got sick, when we found out that he had cancer, that's actually when the first song for this record, that's when things got kicked off for this second record. I called up Nick and I was like, yo, I've got all these ideas for a song and we got to get together and write this. Like, it has to happen. And so there's songs on this record that are about going through cancer with Stu, and then there's songs on this record about the passing of my friend Steve that happened back in 2002. And then there's a lot of songs that I needed to write as far as like, relationships go. And so songs are relationship based. And I think people will relate to these, people relate to songs because people have gone through these things, and I'm psyched about that. But yeah, it's a task for me to write lyrics, and then the band will ask every now and then, what's the song about? And I'm always like, oh God, here's the lyrics. I hope you don't veto it, or like, think they're cheesy or they suck or whatever.
Has that ever happened?
No, there is a song on the record, or maybe two songs on the record actually, that the band as a whole kind of thought that I could go not in a different direction, but like, hey, maybe use this phrase, like this, if you sang it with these words, the phrasing would sound better. But nothing just got straight up vetoed, like, this subject matter sucks, get it out of here, or whatever.
That's good.
Yeah, they were all, usually they're very psyched with the lyrics because they know the melodies that I'm singing, but they don't know what the words are. And then usually once they get the lyrics, they're like, oh, this is, I already liked what you were singing, but I didn't know the words, and now I like it even more. So I'm lucky in the sense that that we're on the same level as far as, my writing style lyrically. But yeah, there was that. And then there's another couple songs on this that the band kind of members came to me and said, hey, this is the subject that I would love for you to tackle if you think you could do this. And so I kind of used it as a writing exercise to be like, all right, I got to get in the headspace of something that I'm not very familiar with. One song on it is kind of about having children and being a parent and how that changes your life, and they become more than anything else in the world. You love that more than anything else in the world. You never thought you'd be love something so much. But I don't have any kids, so I can't write lyrics. I can't relate to that. And I had said to Nick, I said, well, why don't you write the lyrics? Like this would be awesome. Like I'm not against somebody else in the band writing lyrics, and he just wasn't comfortable writing lyrics for a song. He probably had the same fear as me, thought it was going to be cheesy or something. So I had to take it on as an exercise of what, I had to put myself in the place of a parent, and, what would I write to my child, or what would I want my child to hear me sing, or, and I kind of brought in like, what would my parents think, or write about being my parents. And I think it ended up being it was a fun exercise that I think came out well. And I gave Nick the song with the lyrics sung to it. So he didn't know the lyrics until the song was done in the studio. And I gave it to him, and he cried. And so I was like, yeah, I did
Success.
Yeah.
I like the idea of feeding a subject to you and just seeing, like, we'll see what your take is on it.
Yeah. But it's hard, man. If you have no experience, it's like, oh, hey, write a song about being in the army. Well, I've never been in the army. Like, what the heck? Like,
Yeah.
Like I can't, there's like these artists that will write these songs about, the army and all this kind of stuff. And, they'll become big sometimes because of that, but they have to put themselves in those shoes somehow when they write those lyrics. And
you have to be a good writer, like songwriters who the song will be like a story about some guy going off to the Navy or something, or like just something that has nothing to do with the person. I mean, you have to be a pretty good writer to do that kind of stuff, I think.
Yeah, but that can backfire so quickly.
Yeah,
if it's like if you're a mechanic and you're listening to a song about how to put a car back together, like if you don't know how to put a car back together, the mechanic's going to go, this guy know what the fuck he's talking about. Somebody that's in the actual Marines or something, listening to a guy write a song, or listening to vocals, lyrics about a guy going off to the army, it could be totally unrelatable, but the ones that do it well.
Exactly.
I think I pulled it off okay.
It sounds like it. I'm looking forward to hearing the whole album.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's only 2 weeks away. I'm very excited for it to come out. I get anxious, like I'll say I don't care, like, oh, we wrote it for ourselves, and who cares who likes it as long as we do or our friends do. But I still get anxious and almost get to the point where I just ignore it. I can't watch like the number of streams or the number of hits that the videos get. I'll check it maybe every 2 weeks and be like pleasantly surprised that, oh, whoa, we're over 100,000 views. Like, that's crazy to me, because I was happy when we got 5,000, and so I can't drive myself crazy as far as like the success of a video or anything like that goes.
No, I think ultimately if you're happy with it, then that's all that matters in the end. Like my last record, not a lot of people heard it, but sometimes I listen to it and I'm like, we did a great job. And, I'm like, oh, well, I wish we could have played a show, but that didn't happen. But, later, like people still discover it through other means. And once in a while they'll be like, hey, I found this and it's great. And I'll be like, wow, that's awesome. So I'm just happy with that,
Yeah. When we were writing this record, it was like, let's just do it. At least we'll have it cataloged for ourselves,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what we have coming up. Now, folks, as a reminder, Fairhaven, Silent Drive's new record, the first in 17 years, is coming out June 10th on Equal Vision Records. So I think by the time you hear this, it'll be out. So we have to pick that up, right?
Absolutely.
We have to. And are you going to be playing some gigs? Can we come see you?
Yeah, we have. We've got a big kind of record release. I go to Europe with this band called Stick to Your Guns for the next month, and then I'm back. And that's kind of when shows will start kicking off. So July 23rd in Worcester, Massachusetts is kind of our record release show, even though it's going to be a month after the record came out. But kids will know it by then, hopefully. And, we've upgraded the show twice already. So hopefully it'll just be a killer show. So that's going to be the first opportunity. And yeah, we're working on other things right now. So as the summer goes on, we'll definitely be playing shows. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to see us. Not a lot, because a lot of us are adults and we can't really do a ton of stuff. But, when we're going to be out there, make sure you come out and see us for sure.
Absolutely. Awesome. Looking forward to it. And Zach, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I've been listening to you for years, and I love your work, and it's just great to get to talk to you.
Oh, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
There you have it, folks. Zach Jordan. That was an amazing conversation. It was wonderful to talk to him, to hear the story of Bane. I was really curious about how the logistics of that last show came together, and it was just a great story there. And I had no idea that they took so long between records. I was really curious about that, because when I was looking at the discography, I was like, wait, there's like 10 years between these two records, and I figured they broke up or there was some kind of hiatus or something. Nope, they were touring the whole time. He said they just took a really long time to write records, which I thought was hilarious. I mean, that's a pretty long time for a band that's still together.
Yeah. I've seen bands take hiatuses, but they don't tour during their hiatus.
I know, yeah. They just kept going. It was
There's just some bands that are built like that. They just tour. It's like, I've never been in a band that was like that or stay together long enough to tour like that, actually.
Yeah. And it was pretty funny how he mentioned, like they thought people didn't want a record, and then they put out a record and they saw renewed interest, and that, they did the music video and that helped. And they had been a band for so long at that point. So like in my mind, I just assume everyone that's doing it is like an expert and they know what they're doing, or people are telling them what to do and they do it, but they were still figuring it out as they went along, like pretty late into it.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm 46 years old and I'm still figuring out what I'm doing. I'm by no means a professional, so I can understand that way of thinking.
Yeah, and you've been doing it your whole life.
Yeah, I picked up the guitar at 15 and it's been 31 years.
And here we are. And yeah, Silent Drive, I'm glad they're back too. That's a really good band. And again, very long gap between records. And, Zach mentioned that it was kind of the same thing, but the stars aligned. They're back together. Fairhaven is here, and it's fantastic. Happy that they're back doing it again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first time I heard Silent Drive was on a EA game, Burnout 3 Takedown. They had a track on that game. That's the first time I ever heard Silent Drive.
Oh, really? They were on a video game?
Yeah. It was their song 416.
Wow. I had no idea. This makes me like them even more.
But that was a band that could have fit on Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Dave Mirra Pro BMX, all those kind of extreme sports games of the time. They fit perfectly on there.
So what do you think? Do you think Casket Lottery and Silent Drive will cross paths and you'll run into Zach once again?
Yeah. It'll just be some random show in Southern California or somewhere. We'll run into him again. And then we'll end up doing a string of shows with them, and they end up in Kansas City. I don't think Nathan's mom lives in the same place, though, so I don't think he'll be crashing on her floor this time.
Well, maybe Nathan can make the pancakes this time.
Yeah. Nathan's living in he's living in Nashville.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He left Kansas City a few years ago. So yeah, he's living in Nashville now.
Oh, wow. How is that working out with the band and everything? I guess you guys just get together when you can. And
no, we got Jason Trabue, who played For Hope's Fall on the Magnetic North record. He's our full-time drummer, and he tours. He's a production and tour manager for Garbage right now. So like he's out with Garbage and Tears for Fears at the moment. So like we not hired, our friend Jeff Gernstablum from Small Brown Bike flies in every time we have a show and practices with us, and then goes and does a string of shows with us.
Oh, awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about ourselves some more, Stacy. How are we doing? Now, people hear from me enough. Let's start with you. What's going on? Lay it on us.
Well, just being a dad, playing video games. That the family's actually out at cross country practice tonight, so I was able to get some quiet time to do this with you. Well, everything's going on in the world, man. Early over the winter, I guess, I had a pretty bad cancer scare. So,
what happened?
I'm clear, but I have to do follow-ups more frequently now. But I had a little bit of a cancer scare this year. So I've been dealing with that. That's about it, man. Just video games, family, and trying to keep recording music with the Casket Lottery.
Yeah, and what's going on with the Casket Lottery? You had some shows recently, yes?
Yeah. We did the Beat Kitchen and UFO Factory in Michigan and a place in Kalamazoo. We just did some stuff with 84 Tigers, Mike and Ben Reed from Small Brown Bike. So we just got back from that, and we're in the studio right now, off and on. We got about 10 to 12 tracks that we're kind of working through at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
So potential new release at some point?
Yeah, we don't know what it's going to be. We're trying to decide if we want to release it, like trickle out singles and kind of gain interest, but we're doing it all on our own at the moment.
That's awesome. You got to get out to the East Coast again. We have to meet in person. Stacy, remember when I met you at Furnace Fest, but you didn't know it was me?
Yeah. I never saw your face, and I couldn't hear anything. I had earplugs in because I was right beside the stage, and you came up and introduced yourself, and I was like, "Oh, that guy seems nice."
Yeah.
And then you sent me a message saying, "Hey, that was me," and I felt like such a schmuck.
I made many mistakes at Furnace Fest. I was so awkward. I would pick the absolute worst times to go over to people. Or I wouldn't go over to people at all because I was like, oh, they don't care. Or I was a bit presumptuous and I was just like, hey, I'm Keith. And like I was talking to Josh from Hopes Fall all weekend and he had no clue it was me.
That's so funny. And you've done an interview with him, haven't you?
Multiple times, yes.
Multiple times, yeah. So I didn't get to see the Hopes Fall guys. That kind of bummed me out. I really wanted to see them because Magnetic North is like one of my favorite records of all time.
Oh yeah,
so Arbiter. Arbiter is amazing.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I cycle in and out of which Hopes Fall record is my favorite, but I have to say lately it's been either Magnetic North or Arbiter.
I kind of like that era, the kind of shoegazy era of Hopes Fall. The earlier hardcore era stuff, didn't really get into it, but when they started getting a little more shoegazy, Deftonesy, I really got way into them.
Yeah, excellent band. Band. And
amazing group.
Now the most important question, Stacy, what games are you playing currently?
Oh goodness, I just finished The Quarry, which is by Supermassive Games. They did Until Dawn, and they did this anthology trilogy that just happened, like with The Man of Medan, and they have a trilogy of horror games. Just finished that. Stars Dave Arquette and Lance Henriksen.
Oh, nice.
And like all these like B movie style actors, and it was fantastic. I just finished that just right before we started this.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to finish the whole thing?
13 hours.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. It's a pretty short one. It's kind of a traditional filmic style point and click adventure game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
When I play games, they tend to be like the big story games, and I play them slow. So it'll take me months and months and months to finish them, and then when I do, I'm really depressed.
I was really depressed after finishing The Last of Us 2.
Oh yeah, I played that last year. I started it right before my relationship ended, and then finished it sometime over the summer when I was having like a really rough time. So, unbelievably awesome game, but I was depressed most of the year while I was playing it. But that's good because I had something to guide me through the depression.
Yeah. I think I've played through it 6 times already.
Whoa.
Like the first time I finished it, I was like, I'm never going to play this game again. I can't do that to myself again. I was so destroyed. Like about halfway through, I was about ready to give up. I didn't think I wanted to even complete the game at the Abbey section, but I did.
You know what? I remember texting you about it now that we're having this conversation. Because folks, if you haven't played Last of Us 2, you're going to have to fast forward like a minute because I'm going to give away some major plot points here. First of all, Joel died, and that was a real bummer. But I'm like, okay, we still have Ellie. I'll play the game. And then it flips, and you become Abby, and you see their side. And I remember messaging you and being like, I don't know. And I was like, oh, so now I got to do this whole thing. But once I played the entire game, I know a lot of people complained and couldn't handle the change, but I think it was brilliant what they did.
Oh, it was. And by the end of the game, I kind of disliked Ellie and liked Abby more.
Yeah.
It's like there's a total turn, and Naughty Dog did exactly what they wanted to do, is get people to change their minds about Ellie and Abby.
Exactly. I'm 100% with you on that. I think I want to play Red Dead Redemption 2 again. I've been like getting sucked in watching clips on YouTube, and it's my favorite. I think it's my favorite open world game I've ever played. Now, you weren't a huge fan of that one, right?
No, I bought it, downloaded it on my PlayStation 4, played 30 minutes of it, and never went back to it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
everyone I know is like, you need to play it. It's one of the best games ever created, but I just never got myself to play it again.
It really is. Did you ever get off the mountain?
No.
Okay.
I went to the Marsden section where you find him. I think he's stuck on the mountain.
Yeah.
And I got to that point, and that's as far as I made it. I think I made it back down to the cabin with Marsden, and that's as far as I made it.
I see. Well, if you ever somehow find the willpower again, get off the mountain and get into the open world part, and you'll like it better.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I have been playing Quake. Do you remember how they relaunched the original Quake and they added
they
new
relaunched
chapters?
it with the 120 hertz and 60 hertz refresh and all that stuff, and slightly updated graphics.
Yes, I am finally playing the new chapters. I finished one, Dimension of the Past, I think it's called, and then there's Dimension of the Machine, which is really cool because they put in these environments and stuff that you don't typically see in a Quake game. Like there's some like outside and brighter stuff, which is kind of cool. So I'm finally playing through those and I love it. I played a little Quake multiplayer online and that was really fun. And of course, Warzone, which is like my mainstay. They just released a new Resurgence map, Fortune's Keep, and I played it for the first time yesterday, and I clinched a 1v3 to win the game and ended with 11 kills. So I felt like a supreme champion of the world, and I was just unbelievably happy.
You were. My son's been really into Warzone lately, too, so like that's one of his things. Either Fortnite or Warzone is what he's been playing.
Yeah, that they're all the rage. I'm like,
Yep.
I'm hopelessly addicted to Warzone. It's like when I play it and I'm getting my butt kicked, I just hate it, and I'm like, I have to quit this. I can't get out of this. And when I have nights like last night, I'm like, this is the best thing in the world.
I've had those nights too where I thought I was the best in the world.
Yeah, not nearly enough, but they do happen.
No.
Yeah, but otherwise everything's going great. Podcast is super busy. Yeah, that's what takes up most of my time. I'm starting a new band too, so I'm trying to get that up and running. And, otherwise everything's great.
Oh, really? How many members you got?
3.
3?
Me on vocals and guitar, drummer and bassist.
Do you have a name?
No. In fact,
Is it working title?
In fact, I was just in a big fight with my bandmates on text today about naming the band. Band relationships can be contentious, as you know.
Yes, it is. It was never that hard with Coalesce or Breach or any of the bands. But we just flipped over it, opened a dictionary, dropped a finger, and whatever the word was that we dropped it on is what the band name was. We didn't fight about it.
I'm going to recommend this to my band.
You should.
The music is sounding good.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to us getting to a first show, so that'll be fun.
And I'm glad we're getting to the point where we can do shows again.
Yeah, I mean, geez, who thought? It feels like centuries ago that happened, but it was only, 2 years ago?
2 years ago. When we did the last interview, that's what we were talking about. If we ever thought it would return to normal and what it would even look like to be normal again.
Yeah, like I remember when I talked to Nathan before I think Casket Lottery played an outdoor show somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yep, at the Lemonade Park. Yep.
That was like unbelievable to me.
Yeah, it was unbelievable to us too.
Yeah, because it was just like music was just gone. Shows weren't happening.
Yeah, and then when we played Furnace Fest, like there was this level of excitement and level of anxiety. Like it was immeasurable, like how anxious I was at that show to be around that many people. Like seeing thousands of people walking around with about, probably 1/5 of them at the most wearing masks still.
Yeah.
It was just so strange.
How was that gig for you?
Oh, it was great. I think that's about the biggest audience we've ever played to. Easily.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic show. I've seen like flyover videos of it, and it was just unbelievable how many people were there. Yeah,
and that was my first time seeing Casket Lottery since, I don't know, the first small brown bike tour.
Oh man, that was 1999, 2000, something like that. Was our first
like right at the start of the band.
Yeah. Those are good times. I love touring with those guys. I love getting back together with them at 84 Tigers over the weekend a couple of weeks ago. That was fantastic.
That's awesome. All right, well, folks, that's it. That is all we have for you this week. But I want to thank Zach Jordan, once again, for taking the time to come on the show. Stacy, I want to thank you for coming on the show to co-host with me. I mean, this is fantastic, getting to co-host this podcast with you.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out to me. This is like, I've always wanted to actually do a podcast, not only be on one, so I was glad when you reached out.
There you go. Dreams come true every day here on the new scene. And folks, we're back next week with a new episode and a new guest. So thanks everybody for listening. And until next time.